I'm Tania Houjiery. I am a professor, a senior lecturer in the chemistry department. I've been at Clemson for actually 7 years. I started in August 2013. Um, I've been teaching general chemistry and organic chemistry and chemistry capstone. I'm also the coordinator of our EU program. It's good that you basically few years from now, a year into there, ask about what's REU. REU is like research experience for undergraduates. If you are want to go work in a lab at another institution, you apply for that summer internship. So I'm the coordinator of that in our department. I'm also the director of the organic chemistry program. So I have been doing this Jumpstart since 2015. Let me check. It's 2015. And I hope that you will get some ideas from this workshop to get you started. And actually, like, I'm not here to scare you, but you might be a little bit scared. It's different. I can definitely tell you that this will be a little bit different. It's gonna probably be a little bit harder than a normal semester. But if you have the determination and if you put the effort, you definitely can make it. Can you see my screen, all of you? Okay, perfect. So we are going to start how college life look like. First of all, I always try to tell my students in the first day of classes that in college, it's like running a marathon. So you cannot start hard. You know, like if you're, I don't know how many of you have ran a marathon, but if you start really, really fast and hard, then you basically won't be able to make it. So if you ever train for a marathon, they tell you to keep your pace, to figure out your pace, to start not weak, but you also don't start with all your effort. So you have to start strong, but then at the same time, you don't burn yourself by the midterm or the first exam. Especially if you didn't do well on the first exam, you might feel like you studied so much and then you probably start to give up. It's the same with that. And another thing that actually reminds me of college is playing an instrument. So I'm pretty sure many of you have played an instrument or played sports. You all know that the first time that you're gonna play an instrument or play a sport, you're gonna basically not do well. It's gonna probably suck. But with time and practice and practice and practice, you get better and better and better. Another thing about that, not every time you can watch someone playing an instrument, you can go and play an instrument. Or if I see someone playing basketball, that doesn't mean I'm gonna go play basketball. So if your professor is explaining something and it makes sense to you, that doesn't mean that you got it until like you have to go and read it by yourself and study it by yourself and practice it by yourself. So that's actually the two activities that I always related to how college look like or how taking classes at college look like. And another thing about high school and college, I've seen my students from the first year because I teach capstone, so I see them in my freshman year when they start chemistry with me in major section, and I see them in their last year. They definitely grow older. So you are going to mature here. A lot of things are going to change on you, and basically this is how it's going to look like. So we're going to start with a little bit difference between what's high school and college look like. So in high school, first of all, you don't really have many hours that you are going to put in during the week. It's just going to put it enough hours to just go through the material. And the teacher generally will tell you what you need to do. So they will tell you, oh, this exam is going to look like those questions in this chapter, or they might give you a mock exam, or they might like everything, like give you the same question with the same different numbers. So you basically expect the same type of questions, the same type of testing that you have given in class in your exam. And the teacher always goes on the pace of the student. So if she didn't finish, they'll be like, or he didn't finish, they'll be like, okay, we're gonna finish like next year. We don't have to worry. Let's just skip this section. So what I'm trying to say is high school is very flexible. College is not that much as flexible. First of all, you have to put more hours of studying, so you cannot wait for the last minute to study. And a lot of students say that, they're like, oh, I started studying like the week before the exam and I didn't do well. And I was like, that's it, the week before the exam. So, you didn't put any effort during the semester until the first exam. I am not saying that you have to sit every day. Again, don't that marathon idea. Don't start by like sitting every day or like right now going to do all the homework that you have online, like, because you're gonna go so strong. You're gonna start strong. Just face yourself in a way that make a plan. This is how many hours I'm gonna study per week, but do not leave material from one week to the other, because they are going to get harder and harder, and they are going to add up to each other, and you are not going to be able to go through all of the material and do well. And you have to understand the material, and the questions that you will see in the exam, they're not going to be questions that you've seen before. Maybe a couple of them, but not majority of them. So you do not walk in the exam expecting that it's going to look like last year's exam or the mock exam or the practice set. It's not going to look like any of them. Maybe a few questions are going to be similar, but not all of them. And in college, the professor has to finish the material. So there will be a very faster pace than you normally are used to. And you have to keep up with the pace. And if you don't keep up with the pace, you have to go home and like catch up with the material that you didn't understand in class. So what I'm trying to say is basically when you go to class, you're not expected to understand 100% of what the professor tells you. If you got 60% of that, that's perfect. Then you have 40% to go home and figure them out by yourself. But don't expect that you are going to understand every single thing that the professor talked about in that class, because the pace is very fast. Another thing about the teachers and the professor. First of all, the teachers in school, they normally have a bachelor's degree. They don't have a higher degree. Very, very few of them might have a higher degree on that. And most of them might not have a degree in chemistry. So you can always think about maybe these are the students that took chemistry and they got a C in that general chemistry course. And they taught you chemistry in high school. So they might not really know 100% all the material. And they're normally addressed by Mr., Mrs., or Miss. And generally your effort counts. So like if you tell them, if they see how much you work, that means you're just gonna get a better grade. They will normally give you makeup exams. They give you a lot of extra credit, and your mastery of the material is by how to produce the information. So like, can I give you a set of questions, and then if I test you on the same set of questions with different numbers, can you figure that out? However, college professor is a little bit different. First of all of us, at least at Clemson, with many departments, there are very few of the departments that don't have a PhD professors, but are all PhD holders, which means we have the highest degree in chemistry. Normally addressed by doctor or professor. And I would love to tell you that your effort counts, but at the end, your results count. Your grades are the only ones that count. I've had so many students in the past years that they would come like, I sat down and I studied way more than my roommate, but my roommate got an A, I got a C. Why? I had like so much effort more. I'd look at them and I was like, I wish I can tell you, but at the end, it's your exam grade that matters. So it's not really like, you can't blame it on the professor, because that's how college is. It's always about your results, what's your grade, rather than how many hours you put there. And the chances for extra credit are very slim. So there might be like 5 points, 10 points maximum. And there's no makeup exams most of the time, depends on the regulations of the course. Generally, the mastery of your information is how to apply the information you understood. So you have to understand rather than memorize the questions or memorize how to solve them and try to reproduce them. You have to understand what's going on. So if you have got any different question, you should be able to know how to solve it. Do you have any questions so far? However, also another thing about college, the big change is you're free now. So at school, your teacher is always after you. Did you do your homework? Are you studying? You didn't come to class. And if a student missed 1 day or 2 days, they'll call their parents, what's going on, why didn't they go to. This is not the same. You are free. You go to class, you watch your Zoom, you do your homework, you don't, your parents are not going to be part of this. Your professor, a lot of professors, they do not call, like they do not send emails like, well, why don't you come to class? They might just drop you from the class. So it's all you. That freedom comes with a lot of responsibility because you have to manage your time without anyone telling you how to manage it. And I can tell you a lot of stories about my friends that they moved to another city. And when we moved to another city, that idea that they're not around their parents anymore, they don't have a high school teacher, and they start like hanging out probably with the wrong people, and they start like leaving their courses, they don't go to classes, and then at some point you are going to fail your class. So that's the big change of college. Another big change is an example of me. You are going to meet people with accents. You're going to meet people that are different than you. And that's something that the biggest change in college. Because probably a lot of you, when you were in high school, you were with your high school friends all your life, or you were around people that you know how they speak, you know their accent, you have the same accent. You're not going to have that in college because you will meet a lot of different people with different accents. So you always have to basically have this open-mindedness about how am I going to interact with that person. You have to always understand that they might not come from the same background, they might not say things like you say them, they might not act like you act. So that effort to understand that diversity that goes in college is very important. That's the biggest change, because college is where you are going to be you. And that's where you're going to build your future. So whatever you take from the college is whatever you're going to become in your future. This is where you are going to make connections, try to network, to figure out how to interact with people. Because at the end, I can tell you for sure, your grades are the minimum that matters when they're trying to hire you. What really matters is what did you learn from, like, are you going to be able to do your work? Are you going to be able to communicate with people? Are you going to be able to understand and accept and respect people? So that's basically the big change also in college. Our expectations. So first of all, all of us expect you to communicate with us. We rarely communicate back, and a lot of professors might not reply to you. And I'm pretty sure I will tell you that if they didn't reply to you after like an hour or two, you just have to give them, a lot of them will tell you to give them 24 to 48 hours of time in order to reply, for them to reply to your email. And if you feel like their email was urgent and in their instructions that like 24 or 48 was not the time, like they didn't reply in 4 days, and you feel like they might have missed your email, they might have like lost it somewhere, because believe me, we had a lot of emails every day. So email them back. Don't like go and like say, oh my God, they never replied to my email. Just email them back. And if they email back, like maybe, well, in that case, I'm not sure, but if you email them back, they probably will reply. And also be on time in class. I'm not sure, whenever you go back right now, let's just assume that you are now on campus. It's really, really disrespectful to walk in late. So just make sure make your best that you are going to be in class on time. And if you're attending a Zoom, well, now you can like just log in. Probably you can log in late, but when you're going to class, make sure that just always remember, put yourself in that professor and see how you feel if someone did something. So that's how you're gonna think of our expectations. And texting, calling, putting your phone like in front of you while the professor is teaching. These are all things that kind of disrespectful. Imagine you talking to your friend and your friend having their phone in front of you, like they're not even listening to you. So that's how basically we feel whenever we're trying to explain something and then look and like find a student with his phone in front of his face. So time management, because professors are not going to tell you how to make your time management. They're going to tell you these are the deadlines, you have a quiz, you have a homework, you have. And a lot of professors right now are going to be so flexible with the time. That doesn't mean that you have all the time to finish. So for example, in my course, I'm gonna put all my online homework for exam 1 due on exam 1 for the 4 chapters. That doesn't mean that you wait to Sunday to make 4 chapters of homework, because then you're not gonna be able to finish them. So make sure that you have a time management. In my class, I'm gonna give a quiz that opens on Monday and closes on Friday. You don't wait till like Friday at 10 p.m. to take the quiz, and then you like encounter some technical difficulties, and then you won't be able to take the quiz, or email your professor in the middle of the night telling them that you couldn't take the quiz. So make sure that you make a plan, buy a planner, especially right now with the online, you do have to make a planner. You see, I always have a planner. I plan every day. If I don't plan every day, there's a lot of things that's gonna be missing every day. Manage your time. Study daily. It doesn't have to be study daily for this course, but study daily for whatever course you need to study. And I'm assuming for chemistry, I would like you to study 3 times a week, because that would, like, let's say you have a class on Monday, just Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, sit down and remind yourself of all the material. And then you have a class on Wednesday, then Tuesday, do the same. So like always before you go to class, just remind yourself of the material that was covered before. So you won't have like, you won't go to class and was like, I don't remember what was going on last time. Make a to-do list, prioritize your activities. Right now, again, we are online. There's plenty, probably you don't have a lot of activities on campus, extracurricular activities and all of that. But do not like think that you're gonna sit down now all the time and study, and not, you have to balance your life too, because you cannot do both without like one over the other. So for example, I had a student that she didn't do anything the first semester. She didn't even meet new friends. All she did was study, and she basically did more than an A. And then in the second semester, she started doing really like kind of not good. So I called her in my office, because she was my top students in the fall. And I was like, what's going on? And she was like, I started this sorority, and like now I just don't know how to. So I told her, like, all you have to do, try to figure out how to manage your time. Doesn't mean that you can't do other things. You can do other things. Just be able to manage your time and prioritize what you need to do before anything else. Always stay on track, and don't forget to eat and sleep. You do have to have a lot of math skills for chemistry. And if you are weak with math, then there's plenty of help. You can always watch videos, and you can take another class. I always tell students to know your calculator. If you're at some point, if you calculate something and your professor calculated something else and you got the wrong answer, maybe it's only your calculator, not how you're doing it wrong. So maybe you can ask your professor what I'm doing wrong. I had a lot of students in my office asking me, like, I don't know why I got this answer wrong on this exam. And I look at their work, all of it is correct except their calculator. They used it wrong. So make sure you know your calculator. Don't buy a calculator the day before the exam and use that calculator. From the beginning of the semester, buy a calculator, get used to it, figure out what you're doing wrong if you're calculating something wrong on it. And always understand your weakness and seek help. We have plenty of help for you. We have PAL sessions. You can always go to your professor. You can always go to your friends. And the most important thing about chemistry is you have to practice. It doesn't come easy. You have to practice. If it came easy, then you're blessed with knowing all the chemistry, but generally it doesn't come that easy. You have to practice. Lecture time. Before you go to lecture, best thing is to read a little bit about it. Like, let's say this week we're starting chapter 1. You can just like go get your book, read through chapter 1, a lot of professors have PowerPoint presentation. Right now, a lot of them has videos. So like watch those videos, prepare yourself. Then you are going to go to class, or you're going to go on a Zoom meeting, hopefully with a lot of them. At least for me, I will have a Zoom meeting. You have to listen to what I'm saying and follow me. A lot of professors have PowerPoint that you follow and write on. Take notes. The best thing is to take notes. Like I've seen a lot of students sitting in the class and just listening. It's just the same. Like, just if you sit down and listen to anyone, there's no way that you're going to remember anything after you leave that class. So when you take notes, you always like kind of, it's an exercise to your brain to remember what went on in that class. Studying, again, you have to study. I'm not sure how many times I should say it, but you have to study a little different from high school. It is, and sometimes you might think it's an easy one. You would be like, oh, I got this. I know, I understand everything he went over. And then you'd be like, oh, I don't have to like study it. Nah. And then later on, you'd be like, oh my God, I wish I studied it. So always make sure that at least go once or twice through the material that the professor gives you in class. And I think that the best way to learn is to read a little bit, but reading, it's like, you know, you read a novel, that doesn't mean that you are going to be able to write one or to memorize. Like, you're not going to be able to recite it because you just read it. But when you read a textbook, read it with like comprehension, like you're not reading it as a novel. And most of the time you might not understand a lot of things in it. Wait till the professor goes over the material and then reread it again. I was like, oh, now it makes sense. And if you don't have the textbook, you don't really have to have a textbook. Google is full of information. You can just write down the sentence that the professor is going over, and you have all this Wikipedia information or Google or books. Like, you will have videos. There's a lot of YouTube videos about a lot of information that we cover in class, all of them basically. So maybe put some effort to like learn a little bit like on your own before rather than like relying on the professor that gives you all the information. Take notes. Notes are very important, especially right now. The exams is probably going to be open book, so you will have a note sheet. So make sure that to understand what notes you need to put. Don't put too many notes that you are going to look at your sheet and you wouldn't understand what you're doing. If you have a homework, work it and rework it. So when you do the homework before the exam, go back and like look at the questions that you missed and see why you missed them, and if you can do them again. Visit your professors, where all of us will have office hours. They're virtual, but we still will have office hours. If you have any question about any problem, ask them. They will explain it to you. And check your emails, because professors always send updates. I will send updates probably every a couple of days or every day. And just remember that studying is a daily process. Again, it doesn't have to be chemistry every day, but like you have to do something every day. And the exam, don't cram. Don't wait till the last minute to study. That's the worst thing. It might work for exam 1, but it will not work for exam 2, and it will not work for exam 3, because exam 1 is a little bit easier on some material if you took AP chemistry, but do not wait to the last minute. So you will have all material. So like, for example, within 1 week, a lot of professors, they're going to put for you last year's exam, last year's like reading and all of that. Just go over that and try to practice ahead of time, and go back to the worksheets that the professors give you, depending on every professor what they're going to do. And don't like, you have to take care of yourself. Self-care is most important right now, especially with what we're going with the COVID-19 pandemic and sitting at home. And I know a lot of us are under a lot of different lifestyle. So you make sure that you take care of yourself. If you like to exercise, keep exercising. Don't like skip all the things that you liked in life just for every time you have an exam. Just make sure that you balance everything. And do not do an overnighter before the exam, because it's not going to work. You are going to be nervous. You are going to be unable to focus. I've seen a lot of students that they come to the exam and they did not sleep the whole night, and then things scrambles in their head and they couldn't figure out anything. And then, you know, just they don't do that much well because they did that. You're not going to have that because you're going to take an online exam. But in the future, when you are taking an exam, I always tell my students, don't look at your friend, because you might be doing it right, they might be doing wrong. So do not ever look and like to think if you're doing it right or not. Don't overthink that. And that's basically cheating. But before you cheat, you just have to always remember that that student might not be doing the right thing. You might be doing the right thing. Read the instructions, especially for the online. You are going to have very strict instructions. You have to make sure that you read them. You read the question and you read the answers before you all the question, because a lot of students were like, oh my God, I missed the second sentence in the question. I was like, how did you miss that? Like, it tells you that that's exothermic. And they'd be like, I just didn't finish the sentence. So make sure that you finish the sentence, you're reading it, make sure you look at the answers, make sure you understand what's going on. And if you don't know the question, then you probably will have to guess, but at least when you make it just a kind of smart guess. So I have a couple of scenarios, and I just want to kind of take your opinion. So let's say student, which is a very common thing that happens, they studied, and they went to exam 1 and they didn't do well. They failed exam 1. So what do you think that students should do? They should drop the class, stop studying, seek help, or see his professor first? Yes, I think they always have to see your professor, because at some point the professor is going to look with you at the exam and they will tell you what you're doing wrong. And then you basically, like, if you're doing something wrong that's essential that you're studying wrong, then maybe you will work on that. And if you're doing maybe it's your calculator, again, calculator is always kind of a mistake too. Maybe it's a conceptual thing that you are kind of memorizing. You thought it's one question that you saw in the practice set. So always see your professor first, but then also go to the academic center and find help from pals and tutoring. But don't stop studying and don't drop the class after exam 1. I don't think you should until you really think that you cannot probably make it through the semester and you have to do it. And you went to the professor and you explained that you read the book, solved the problems, and you were always in class. What do you think that student had done wrong? Yes, you might be basically not studying effectively, because you might be learning the material. You might be understanding what's going on. It's just you might not be studying effectively, which means you might not be studying in a way that you can apply that knowledge rather than memorize it and try to think that you should see the same thing that you've seen before. So that's basically probably the big mistake. A lot of students might think that's the professor's fault. I'm not saying that all professors are perfect, but at least I can tell you for sure that our department, the chemistry department, we have the best professors. All of us care, all of us do so much work for the students. So I can assure you that I wouldn't say that the professor's fault. Maybe other departments, I don't know, but in our department, we're all on the same page that we give everything for the student. And not only that, like it's a common material, so you can have other help from other sections as well. These are the 3 resources. So there's the peer assisted learning. All of you probably will have it now on Canvas. You can go and see all the list of the PAL leaders and their times. You can go to anyone, join Zoom and any one of them. There's also ASC tutoring, and always you can see your instructor, look at their office hours, try to meet with them. Even if they are all virtual, you can still meet with them online. Actually, right now it's probably it's a little bit easier because they might not be in the office, but they can still like Zoom with you for 30 minutes. So I think you should always use those 3 resources when you're studying for chemistry. And this is information from PAL leaders showing you that PAL actually really helped. That's like rates from 2012 to 2013, how it changes. You can see that whenever you have SI, you will have these are the DWF means that students that got D and failing and withdraw. You can see that it's all went down when they started using PAL, because it's also important to go and see it's good to work with other friends, because then you might learn from each other more than learning from the professor. And don't forget that PAL leader is a student that got an A in that class. They basically did really well. They understood the material and they know your struggles as well. So they can help you with those struggles when you are going through the material. So these are the grades from last year. I'm gonna show them to you. You can see that the first exam, we had an average of 71. In the past years, it used to be higher. Last year, for some reason, it was lower. So normally it used to be around 78. But last year, because exam 1 was low, exam 2 was higher. Generally, exam 1 is the highest and exam 2 goes lower, because exam 2 material is a little bit more conceptual and a lot of structures and drawing, and so you have a lot of practice. Exam 1 is mainly a lot of material that you've seen in high school. You can see also the low grades. We have 12, we have 8, but we also have 104. 104 because it's normally, I'm not sure about this semester, but generally the exams will have 4 points extra credit. And exam 3 was 75 last year, which is consistent with what in the other years. So what happens is, like, the first exam is lower than the second, and then the third is a little bit higher. But the last year, students just got better and better, which is what we really would like to see, that you use just like the averages start getting higher, which means the students are doing, like, they're doing a little bit better at understanding what's going on. And always remember, if you don't do well on exam 1, it might be just a learning curve. You just need to know what's going on. I have a student, she basically failed first exam, and she started just trying to figure out what's going on, and came back to exam 2, went over exam 1. Before we go to exam 2, she went over exam 1, figured out what's going on, like what did she do wrong. And then in exam 2, she did a little bit better. Exam 3, did more better. In the final, she did, I don't remember, but she did better than exam 1. It's absolutely the lowest grades. And she ended up with a B in Janchem 1. She took me for Janchem 2, Organic 1, and Organic 2. And Janchem 2 got an A, Organic 1 and Organic 2 straight A's. Again, that student failed the first exam. I think her grade was around 50s, because I just wrote her a lot of recommendations. So what I'm trying to say is exam 1 might be the exam that you are going to figure out what you're going to do after that. Just make sure that you really, really know what's going on. And if you did really well on exam 1, don't like say, oh my God, I got it. Like, I'm not going to do anything. Like, what I did is good. You might not have got it. You might have had the material that you've seen before. And then don't like just leave everything and stop studying because you think that you can put the same effort for exam 2 and you will do the same. It might not be the same too. So always make sure that you're doing a little bit better, like a little bit more between exam 1 to exam 2 to exam 3. It's like, you know, when you're going in the marathon, you don't start hard. You just like pick up the pace, and then you see that like 3 miles, you just have to run your best. So that's how school is. And last tip is study, keep up, read the text, solve problems, go to class or attend class, pay attention and take notes. Don't memorize, because memorizing will not take you anywhere. You probably will not see the same questions. And ask questions, your friends, pal leaders, and your professor, and work the problems over and over until they make sense. And if they don't make sense, then just find something else, or just go and figure out what they're making, what you're doing wrong. But don't redo them in a way that you memorize what you're doing. It's just redo them in a way that you know what you're doing wrong.